Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us here tonight for a very important announcement. As many of you in this room know, we in Syracuse have been plagued by gang violence. And while we have endeavored on a number of different initiatives, we are pleased tonight to be announcing Truce Project. And there will be others here who will follow me who will talk more about this project in detail. But let me just say, as the mayor of the city, that the Truce is an important step to address the serious gang violence that has plagued our city and our neighborhoods. And this initiative is an evidence-based strategy that has been extremely successful in other cities. And it's designed to significantly reduce gang and group-related homicides and non-fatal shootings in Syracuse. Syracuse Truce, as you will see behind me, is a true collaboration between law enforcement, community service agencies that will infuse the area with a new standard of zero tolerance regarding gun violence. Now, before I turn this over to Chief Fowler, I would like to introduce a number of our partners who have joined us here today. Of course, Chief Fowler, United States Attorney for the Northern District of New York, Rick Hartunian, Assistant U.S. Attorney John Katko, Chief Assistant District Attorney Joe Coolican, Assistant District Attorney Carrie Arnold, Sheriff Kevin Walsh, Deputy United States Marshal Joseph Cicerelli, Rafael Rivera, Syracuse Metro New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, Major Rodney Campbell of the New York State Police, Captain Mark Lincoln of the New York State Police, Lieutenant Phil Ruggi, New York State Police, Special Agent in charge of the Albany Division, Andrew Vale for the FBI, Supervisor Special Agent Michael Dubois for the FBI, Special Agent Mark Park of the FBI. Resident in charge Wes Jackson of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, Explosives. Federal Probation Officer Mark Wallander, Federal Probation Officer Leanna Snyder, Timothy Jennings Bay, the Director of the Trauma Response Team, Dr. Robert Warden from the Finn Institute, Dr. Sarah McLean from the Finn Institute, Janet Burke, the Director of Research for the City of Syracuse, Sheria Dixon, Outreach Program Director for the Salvation Army Syracuse Area Services, Lindsay McClung from the Gifford Foundation, Dirk Sonnenborn from the Gifford Foundation, Linda Wright from the Salvation Army, Dolce Colette Lloyd, President of Mothers Against Gun Violence, Pastor Mark Harris, Trauma Response Team, and Odell Rice, the Trauma Response Team. So without further ado, let me turn this over to Syracuse Chief Frank Fowler.
Good evening. The Truce program started today. We began today by calling 19 young men into a courtroom, and the points that we raised, or the message that we sent, was that we're trying to save lives. Through this focused deterrence of the Truce program, we're looking to save lives, and the fact that we're trying to stop the violence, gun-related violence here in the city of Syracuse. And with the law enforcement partners that we have assembled behind us, we have a solid team that's prepared to dedicate all of their resources toward anyone that decides from this day forward to pick up a gun, to fire it, and to harm another person in the city of Syracuse. And also, we have service providers that are lending their resources as well. And for those who have chosen to stop getting involved in violence and want to make a change, wants to make a difference in their lives, wants to make a difference in their community, we have people who are available to receive you and to help you in any way that we can to do just that. We're trying to save your lives. We're not starting this program because we want to send a lot of people off to jail, although if you use violence from this day forward, you will go to jail. That's not the goal of it. The goal of it is for you to choose the other way. Utilize the services of these social service agencies and end the violence today. But if you do not, here's what's the difference between Truce and any other program that we've started so far. The difference is that if a person after today picks up a gun and uses it to harm another person, and there's a gun-related murder in the city of Syracuse, we're not just going after the person that fired the gun. We're going after any and everyone connected to that person. Anyone, any of your associates, any and everyone connected with that person. We're going to use any and every resource that we have to go after the group of people, not just the individual. And that's the difference. So the message is simple. If you want to change, we're here for you. If you choose not to change, we're coming after you.
Thank you, Mayor Minor, Chief Fowler. My name is Richard Hartunian. I'm the United States Attorney for the Northern District of New York. The message of Syracuse Truce is focused deterrence. We are here to focus our deterrence effort on that small segment of society that continues to commit crime. And we are going to use a federal grant, one of only 9 awarded throughout the country. Syracuse is one of only 9 cities to receive such a grant, to focus our efforts collectively with federal, state, and local law enforcement resources. And we are going to insist that the violence stop. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to concentrate our efforts. We're going to work together. And we're going to use all of the tools in the federal criminal law and in the state criminal law and all the tools that our local law enforcement partners can bring to bear to let the community know that we are not going to tolerate gun violence any further. On the flip side, we want to encourage people to change their behavior, to work with social service agencies, to get counseling, to get job training, and to break the cycle of violence. So that's the message of Syracuse Truce. We are happy to be a part of it. We're proud to join with our partners, and we think this is a real turning point, a real watershed for the city of Syracuse. Thank you.
The Salvation Army Syracuse Area Services has partnered with over 15 social services agencies that is willing to help anyone that wants help. All we're asking you to do, or if you have a loved one, if you have a friend, all they have to do is pick up the phone and call. Providers are waiting to help every and anyone who is wanting help.
I know that you did a lot of research on this particular program. What is it about this program that you think is a good fit for Syracuse and more effective fit to tackle gun violence?
Well, I'm going to speak generally, and then I'm going to ask some of our partners, Chief, if you want to come up here to speak specifically. Gun violence, people don't just pick up guns and shoot each other without there being a whole number of breakdowns along the line, particularly young people. And so in order to have effective deterrence and to stop gun violence, you need to work on all of those problems and all of those breakdowns. So it needs to be both deterrence and programmatic. And what we have seen in other places like Cincinnati and Indianapolis and Boston is that when you combine social services and you give people an opportunity to get the kind of services they need to change their life, and you also couple that with a threat and say to them, if you do not change your behavior, we are instituting a zero tolerance policy, that has been extraordinarily successful. But you cannot do that unless you have willing partners with you to do it. So it's one thing to say that, but it's another thing to get everyone up here behind me and people out in the audience to come together. So there's nonprofits and community groups and neighborhood activists and law enforcement and different levels of government. And all of us have come together to say this is a scourge. We want to eliminate it, and each of us has a part in eliminating that. And so based on the success in other places, based on the fact that we have very successful and willing partners here, and unfortunately that we have this problem of gun violence that we will continue to focus on until we have removed it from the deviant behavior from our city. This is what we felt was the most successful tool in going after this. So, Chief, you want to add to that?
Boss, if you think I can add to that, you give me way too much.
I would like though to ask some of our community partners, and normally I would say I'm reluctant to do this, but Noble, why don't you come up and talk about it from your perspective? I think this is an important voice that should be heard.
Thank you, Mayor Minor. Good evening, rather. Just from the community standpoint, we are sick and tired of burying young people. at the rate that we're burying young people in the community. It's very painful dealing with mothers, fathers, grandmothers, and the children throughout the community that have these gaps in their hearts because loved ones are being buried on a constant basis. It's happening at a rate, and it's happening so fast that we don't even have time to grieve from one homicide to the next. Being a director of the trauma response team, sometimes getting to those gruesome crime scenes and dealing with families at the hospital is very painful. I want to say to the community, people who may be watching, people in the audience, in this instance, silence is consent. We can no longer sit by and be silent about this. We've tried the ostrich approach. It doesn't work. The ostrich approach has got us to this point where we're at now. Say something, do something. People idly sit by, criticize, they say what's going on, what's not going on. Please get involved. I don't care if people have to hand out pamphlets, go door to door, go on radio shows, do interviews. Just please, everybody get together and do something because it's too much. It's too much on the community and it's too much on the families. And it's eroded the community to the point where you feel like you don't even live in the community. People are being held hostage because they can't go to certain places throughout the community and fear that gunfire might erupt. A 12-year-old child should not be thinking about having to pick up a weapon and protect themselves. That's our responsibility as adults in the community to set up borders of safety for our young people and their families and start the process of healing our city here in Syracuse, which I love dearly. That's why the work that we do is so important. Thank you.
I don't think there could have been a more eloquent voice than Noble's voice. And Noble and the work that he has done, along with Dolce and Helen Hudson, with the Mothers Against Gun Violence, but they can't do it alone. The Salvation Army can't do it alone. The Syracuse Police Department can't do it alone. The Onondaga County District Attorney's Office can't do it alone. And that is the point of all of us being here tonight, to say that we have tried, to a certain extent, to be all in our silos and attack this problem. And what we've realized is that together we can be much more successful in eradicating this, and most importantly, helping families and children and the people who live in our city have the opportunities that violence thwarts.
I do. I think that the speakers that we had, I think that they were able to get their point across, and I think that the message was indeed received. And not only was the message received by the young men that were there, we also gave them the charge to go out into their communities and spread the message to their peers, to their friends, to their associates. I want you to. We're not gonna have too many more meetings with these young men. We've delivered our message, but we're looking to reach the entire city, all the different groups that we've identified, whether they're identified as a gang, a group, a clique, a connection, whatever they want to identify themselves as. We've done our research, and so we want to reach out to every gang, group, clique that we've identified. We want to reach out to them or someone connected to them to deliver our message that the violence has to stop in our community. And you said, what's the follow-up? Well, the follow-up will be focus-driven, direct police resources toward anyone that does not heed this warning. The follow-up will be resources that's dedicated to people who do heed the warning. Our social service agencies are poised and ready to go. Our law enforcement partners are sitting here hoping that we don't have to spring into action to do our job, but we are definitely prepared to do just that.
Will there be levels of protection for the young men who step up if they getting some retaliation, some type of protection for them? If they do want to do the right thing, it might be in the opposite position.
Yes, we have assembled a unique group of people, and all of those angles have been discussed, and we've attempted to make provisions for all of that. We have people that are very familiar with the streets. We have people that are very familiar with the street culture, so we've kind of examine those.
I know it's early, the call-in just happened. Were there any phone calls to Sheria Dixon yet? Was it going to take a little time? We were just thinking, maybe pick up the phone and say, yes, I'm on board, I need help. Or will that take a little time? Just curious. Or did you get any indication from any of them?
I don't know.
There has not been any phone calls at this point. It is a 24-hour line, so even though I'm not in the office, someone will still be back.
Not yet.
But let me say that I have spoken with some people in the community, and the phone lines have been busy saying, what is this, and this is different, and why is it different? And this is different, and I think you heard a very clear message from the chief about why this is different. Those 19 young people heard a very different message today. There'll be others who hear the same message next week, and I believe that you will see, and of course I believe this because based on what has happened in other cities, that's what will happen. That there will be people who will avail themselves of services, and then that's how you have to steadily go and attack this problem.
Do you think it took them by surprise when we were sitting there in the hallway and they looked up and they saw their faces up there? And what kind of message do you think that sent to them as far as what you know about them?
It's one thing to tell a person we know who you are, but when I say that and you see a photo of yourself right over my left shoulder, that's another thing. So yeah, I don't know if it caught them by surprise, but I think it helped to deliver the message.
Is there anybody else from the media who has a question? We'll all be available individually if you'd like to ask us questions individually. Thank you all very much for being here.